Welcome to the new school. What we wanted to do was talk about the concept of authenticity and vulnerability in an industry that has typically been super buttoned up, super professional, and a little bit old school. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of our New School video podcast. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, you can also watch us on YouTube. So check us out there, Ficomm partners. Make sure to subscribe. We also have some very cool short clips that are easy viewing. So in this episode, we had the opportunity to speak to Angie Herbers, and I feel like she's no stranger to the industry. And in fact, I had the opportunity to moderate a panel with her on it, and she had people in the audience that stayed to the end to say that they were fans of hers. They actually said, "We're fans of you, and we've been following you for a while," and we feel exactly the same way. She talks about the ROI of culture in a way that I've never heard before. I heard it for the first time at the 2022 Deals and Deal Makers, but she really talks about this ubiquitous thing that can sometimes be unclear. Like, what is culture in a business? How can you get good culture, or how can you create it? What does it look like? What is the impact on your business? And she gives really clear examples and stories around how to think about it as not separate to your business, as this thing that stands alone, but really an expression of who you are, your values, and the change that you want to create. If you've been a listener of the New School podcast for a while, you know that that totally resonates and aligns with our New School ethos. So we couldn't have been more excited to have her on. I think you're going to love this episode. Let's get started. Angie, it's so exciting to have you on the New School podcast. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we're a little bit giddy to have you on. But Angie, I think across our industry, you have a voice that's really well respected and an opinion that holds a lot of weight. I think one of the highlights that I experienced of you was at a Deals and Deal Makers conference a year ago, where you talked about culture in a room of all M&A experts who are really focused on the bottom line. And you were able to articulate the ROI of culture in a way that we'd never heard before. I think the audience had never heard before. And so for anyone listening who is committed to growing their firm, or who is in the M&A game, whatever side of their deal that they're on, what are we actually talking about when we talk about culture, and why does it matter to growth?
Great question. I love the question of culture, because I think a lot of people believe culture is, just a thing. It's not a thing. It's a feeling, but it's also strategic. Culture in Latin means care. So, very simply, if someone asks you, what is your culture like? You're going to tell them what you care about. And every business cares about different things, right? We've got some businesses who care about the growth rate. We've got other businesses who care about maximizing the profit margin. We've got other businesses who care about maximizing valuation. We've got some businesses that care about, staying small and being a great mid-sized business focusing on their clients. So culture is just care. It's what you care about. So if anyone's struggling with culture, I would ask them, instead of writing core values or, writing out what all the consultant lingo is, I would just write the question, what do we care about? And answer it. And that becomes your culture, because care permeates all the areas of practice management. And that's what oftentimes will build your business the quickest. So
I love that, because it's so simple and easy to understand. We all care about certain things, whatever those things may be. Why do you think our industry, though, can get it so wrong? I mean, I feel like we all go to a lot of conferences, the three of us, every year, right? Feel lucky when we get to see you at conferences, because we can actually give you a hug and see each other in real life. But we hear oftentimes from stages, panels, sessions, or if you're listening to a podcast or whatever, people talk about the importance of culture, but no one really ever goes there. No one really ever like gets into it. When firms that are seasoned buyers are on stage and they all say, well, culture matters first, you know,
Filter for culture.
But then they can't explain it. They can't get you there. So then I think that's why people think of it as,
do I like you maybe? Or
I think they think of culture as like just a buzzword in our industry. It's just more jargon. So like, what is it about our industry that has such a tough time being able to articulate, to your point, it's what you care about. So why do you think, Ange, that we struggle so much with that?
I think we have to look at the industry as a whole. I mean, the majority of financial advisor leaders are accidental entrepreneurs, right? So they've either been at brokerage houses and broke away. They've been in an independent firm and they don't like it. And they decide, you know what, it's better for me to serve the clients exactly the way I want to serve them. The barriers to entry on starting your own business are still really small. The cost is really small. And I think that it has a lot to do with that accidental entrepreneur. So when you get into having your own practice or building your own practice and you hear the word culture, it is a buzzword. You have to ask yourself, well, what does culture actually mean?
Right.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that culture is what your leadership is, and what your leadership decides your business will be and what it will focus on and what it will prioritize. It's what you care about. And at the end of the day, if you don't know what you care about, which can often happen when we have a lot of accidental entrepreneurs, if you don't know what you care about, then the journey to culture is figuring out what's important. And once you do that, then the business becomes a whole lot easier. But it's hard for financial advisors who are accidental entrepreneurs to make decisions in their business about what they care about. So I think that that's the main reason why we have, a lot of funny little cultures, or what I would call fragmented cultures, or even growth problems and profit problems and client experience problems and human capital turnover and all that. So,
because I think what you're saying and what you've shared previously, it's really, which is what we believe from a marketing perspective, which is why we love this conversation so much, is it's about alignment. If what you care about, your team doesn't care about, then you're not going to move to the same vision. If what you care about is different from the firm that you want to sell to, post-deal is probably not going to go as smoothly as you'd like.
Well, let's put it in let's put it in a different way. I want you to think about a friend that you've had forever, right? And that friend you can call up and you can pick up where you left off, right? It's easy. The friendship is very easy. You just jump right in, right? More than likely, the reason that you have those friends is because they care about the same things. You care about each other, right? So when you have bad cultures, and I want to kind of, I guess, define what I mean by bad cultures are misaligned cultures. And what ends up happening is you end up having a whole group of those friends that call you when they want something, call you when they need something, don't give you, any call back when you need something, aren't there when you need it. They're, needy and clingy and hard to deal with. You end up with a lot of those management issues in your own practice. Now, let's just say your practice is growing, very nicely. And then all of a sudden you bring the wrong fit in or the wrong alignment in, and you have high management. What do you think that's going to do to your growth rate? What do you think that's going to do to your profit margin? You only have a limited amount of time. Most advisory firms grow on managing capacity well, meaning managing what you do or what you do with your time well. If you get the wrong employee or you get the wrong acquisition or you go into the wrong merger and there ends up being all this high management and a ton of meetings, where's the time to grow? the time to grow isn't there. So people become unhappy. They, partnerships break up, mergers break up, employees leave, there's lots of turnover, and all that significantly impacts the business. So the importance of culture is knowing what you care about, getting people in your organization that care about the same things, so aligned with that particular organization for the benefit of capacity. The more time that you have to work on the business or work with clients or grow the business, the better off you are. When you're spending all your time managing, you're not spending your time growing. And that all leads back to culture.
I mean, I feel like that's just like a mic drop moment.
I know.
Like you had said that, like the easiest relationships, you don't really have to manage them, right? That you have in your life. That's what you're articulating. But if you have to spend all this time constantly managing, it takes away from your time to grow.
And that's where culture is tangible. And that's where you, Ange, talk about the ROI on culture. It is a feeling, it is what you care about, but there's tangible results or there's a tangible impact for getting it right or not being aligned and getting it wrong. And I sort of am hearing you say like you're going to be spending too much time managing and leading people, but I would have to assume that the inability to grow is only one potential negative outcome from misaligned cultures, right? Like there's a lot of other things. Maybe your client retention isn't as high, or your conversion rate's not as high as it should be, or you're having to pay people more than market rate. Like, what do you see as far as some of those tangible outcomes that can negatively be impacted by having a misaligned culture?
So when clients come to Herbers and Company, the first thing that we do as management consultant, because we deal a lot with the numbers, right? The first thing that we do is run a growth strategy. And the thousands of growth strategies that I've seen built or proposed, you can see right in their numbers what the issues are. It might be top line growth. It might be bottom line profit. It might be maximizing valuation. It might be misaligned gross margin. But all of those are outcomes. Culture impacts every leading indicator. The leading indicator of turnover, both employee and clients, capacity, the ability to serve one client versus 100 clients. It impacts referral rates. It impacts marketing leads. It impacts close rates. It impacts the way that leaders spend their money, the expense ratio. It impacts every number. Now, numbers aren't the most important thing, but at the end of the day, we're running businesses here. We're not running non-for-profits. And we're also taking care of clients, hopefully putting their best interests first. If your culture isn't good, you can't do any of those things, or you can't do any of those things well. And it impacts, every number, impacts I could go on and on, but at the end of the day, it impacts the outcomes that you have. So beginning with culture is the easiest and fastest way to start growing.
We talk a lot on this podcast, Angie, about authenticity and vulnerability and the power of it to help connect us to each other. But also, because Ficomm is obviously a marketing firm, like how it connects you to potential clients, that if you show up as yourself and you're real and you're authentic, people can find you and they can connect with you, and then they can identify what that experience would be like. So it's almost like they can see that you care about the same things that they care about, really, if we think about your marketing even as an expression of your culture. So I guess the question then becomes, as you think about and you look at the firms in the landscape right now, are you seeing firms that have a good culture distill that into their external message? And what type of impact is that having?
It's hard to quantify, but I'll say this. So I want to clarify good and bad cultures, because this is really important. A good culture is one that's aligned. A bad culture is one that's misaligned, right? Mm-hmm. There's no technically good and bad cultures unless it's illegal. I mean, we know that's bad, right? So when we talk about authenticity and vulnerability, there's two components to the brand. There's you and all the people that you employ. And then there's what your brand represents, which is the combination of all those people and what they care about, right? So let's look at it over every business. Every business doesn't have an Angie Herbers in it. So there is no way that the Herbers and Company culture could be the same as the Ficomm culture, right? Every business has a different person and a different group of people in it. So to sit down and like research culture is almost impossible, right? Because you can't find causation. You can't say culture is the reason. You know it's the reason, right? You know leadership is important, and you know what that leadership cares about is important, and you know that surrounding yourself with people will get you there faster. Hopefully those people are aligned with you. The point that I'm making here is culture ties into everything. Culture and the alignment ties into everything. And then if it's tied in right, it will be shouted out. And when you shout it out, then you have great marketing, then you have great client service, then you have an awesome brand. And within all of those awesome things, you have awesome people. But the truth is, people, this authenticity and their vulnerability, and among other things, their leadership, their discipline, the way that they make decisions, people stand behind all of culture. We wouldn't have cultures we might have plant cultures or mountain cultures, but we wouldn't have great people cultures if people weren't at the heart of culture.
The tricky thing about that is, and I've learned this from personal experience, is that you have to have, at the leadership level, you have to be clear on what you care about, and you have to understand what your vision is and what your values are in order to be able to attract people who are aligned with that. And I think so often, and I fell into this trap, is not acknowledging how impactful a misaligned culture can be and trying to solve whatever the problem was by throwing more people at it. If I just hire another experienced person or another experienced manager, but the truth is that if your culture is misaligned, it doesn't matter who you hire, how exceptional they are, what their experience is, if you're not clear on your culture first. So it's interesting to me because it's sort of, everything is connected and related, but you sort of have to start here first. And so, I would love to know, Angie, if you agree with that. And then also when you're coaching and consulting with clients that come to Herbers and Company, and you acknowledge it, you can probably see it because you've done this 1,000 or more times when the culture is not aligned. Like, what process do you take them through to get clear on the inner workings first? Because I feel like if the leader is not clear on the inner workings first, it doesn't much matter what else they do.
Yes, all that's true. So I don't know if you guys know what complex theory is, but complex theory is basically we rationalize our behaviors, right? Our brains are built to rationalize our behaviors. And what a lot of leaders do when they're along the growth path is they'll hire quite a lot of people. Those people will turn over, or clients will turn over, or they'll continue to grow and they continue to do the same thing over and over again. And what they're doing by doing that is, rationalizing their thought. They're saying it was that person that was the problem. So I'm just going to replace that person with the next person. And they go along this growth path and go along this growth path. And then all of a sudden, one day, either someone brings it to their attention, which is a lot of what we do in Herbers and Company, or, they come to this awareness on their own that the culture and or the leadership begins with the word you, meaning you, what's within you. You teach people how to treat you, and if you're getting treated poorly, with the exception of children. But if you're getting treated poorly, if you're not having the results that you have, it probably stems from something that we are doing. To get people to understand culture and to attach to it or become aware, consultants do things and or rationalize why you should do things to help leaders become aware. So a good example is core values. When we have leaders come into Herbers and Company, it's just so clearly a leadership issue, but they're trying to solve a growth problem. We might have them do core values or write down core values or write down vision or write down mission. And the goal is for them to become aware that the decisions that they're making are not matching what they care about. So you have all of these tools to help whatever leader or whatever owner needs help to become aware and then change their own behavior and project it out versus projecting onto everybody, projecting onto everyone and blaming everyone for the results that you have in your business. So long-winded answer, I can't answer your question on what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, because I don't know what the leader is struggling with, to what level they're aware or unaware, but I do know that there are tools to help all leaders, such as core values, vision, mission, even leadership courses or, whatever, one-page business plans, all sorts of processes that are used to just help begin to focus on the awareness of the leadership problem and then begin to align it. Now, with all that being said, it doesn't work for everyone. Some people, there's just some people out there that will not grow, and they won't grow because they can't seem to find or can't seem to decide what they care about, which is okay. Just as a total side note, I stepped on my glasses today, and all they do is come down here, and I feel like I'm aging myself with them. There's my authenticity and vulnerability.
I love that so much. I think, like us, but in a different context, you get the experience to see the inner workings of so many different firms across our industry. And we have the same experience and opportunity, which I think is a gift, right? Because then you can really start to see like the big macro picture, and that you can pull some insights that are really helpful to everyone. So as you think about the future of our industry, Angie, like what you're seeing, and you think about the work that you do with consulting, the work that you've done, the work of the future, where do you think we're going as an industry in terms of like how we view growth?
Do you really want me to get into this? This podcast is going to last forever. I've spent the last 20 plus years consulting on organic growth, and there's been a lot of trends along the pathway. When I entered the industry, it was really easy to get clients because there wasn't that many independent advisors. So marketing wasn't that important. You could just go out and drum up some clients. And then the next phase was it got a bit more competitive, and then it became about service, about client experience. And then we started to see referrals and advisors like dropping their marketing programs, which makes no sense to me, but that's all right. It happens. Now, to me, we're entering into a phase of capacity. And what I mean by that is you have to have the capacity to grow. In other words, you have to have the capacity as a leadership to take responsibility for that growth. You have to have the capacity to put a marketing plan in place and keep it in place. You have to have the capacity to have a client experience in place and put it in place. You have to have the capacity to look at and define your leadership style and your culture. And you have to have the capacity, the decision to grow. In the past, advisory firms grew pretty much on their own. But I believe the future of our industry is, we're starting to see, I mean, just from competition alone, we're starting to see the need, really the necessity to build capacity in firms to handle, whatever growth they're trying to achieve, and whatever leadership that they have. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but the capacity is very much part of culture, and without the capacity to grow, or the culture to grow, or the client experience to back it up, or the marketing plan to build it, or with the people to be there to serve it, then advisory firms will stall out, or growth will begin to fall. Mm-hmm. I think this is an interesting time in the industry for me, because I had always hoped that the industry would get to a place where one practice management area didn't dominate the other. And I think that we're at that place where competition is balancing out. And as a result of that, advisory firms have to find the balance of all of the areas of practice management within their firm to maintain their growth rates, or to build them higher.
So when you say capacity, and I hear you explain it in the way that you just explained it, I sort of think of like your business strategy, right? And all of the components within that business strategy. I know that at Herbers and Company, you consult on, is it still eight areas of the business?
Yes. Leadership, growth, operations, client experience, management, human capital, sales, and marketing. We build strategies for advisory firms in all 8 areas, with the hope that actually we're building strategies in all 8 areas at the same time, because we know that is what gets the growth. Now, not all advisory firms need our help in all of the 8 areas, but pulling them all together is one of our really key skills, is to make something that's pretty detailed and complex simple for those firms to maximize their organic growth rate.
So what I'm hearing you say is that firms today, in order to achieve the growth that they want into the future and not stagnate and stall out, is that they have to have the capacity to sort of lead in all of those 8 areas, which means they have to understand the areas, they have to know how to make decisions and form strategies, and then they need to be able to execute.
Yes, and most important, execute. I mean, you can make the decisions, you can build the strategies, you can make the decisions to go toward the strategies, but if you can't actually execute the strategies or implement the strategies, then the strategy is no good. That's one of the reasons why I started Herbers and Company, is because I felt like way back when, 20 years ago, there just wasn't enough consultants that would help implement those strategies. Well, we can build them and we can implement them. But for the firms who can do it themselves and build their own strategies, I think the important thing is looking at every strategy and how it connects to all other strategies, not abandoning one strategy and focusing on another strategy along your growth curve. It's pulling everything together and building that business holistically, no different than we build financial plans. I mean, the financial advisory industry didn't require us to be the best in every area or be aligned in every area until now.
I love that, because I love how in your vocabulary, like alignment always comes up, because it does for us too, and with our friends at Ficomm as well. And so I think about, Angie, I had the opportunity to moderate a panel where you were on it, and the question was all around talent, right? That seems to be like a hot topic right now in our industry. Like, how do you attract them? Where do you find them? How do you pay them? And all that type of thing. And you had articulated the same thing, like, it's not separate and distinct. This is part of the alignment of your vision and values. And if you're clear on, to your point, using your words and paraphrasing, if you're clear on what you care about And in our world, we'd say, and if you're authentic about it and you're showing it on an external, then people find you and your answers become much clearer in answering any big questions like that.
Yeah, and life becomes easier. I mean, the panel that we were on, I said on that panel, someone had asked me, maybe it was you, Candace, what is the war on talent really about?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, the war on talent is really a war on growth, which is what the industry is entering into, because we would not be needing more talent if we weren't growing. So, I mean, the bottom line is there's, I mean, I don't want to be intense about it, but there's a war on talent. There's also a war on clients, which is going out and marketing. There's also a war on keeping clients, which is client experience. There's also a serious issue with close ratios, meaning the ability to close clients or to train other advisors to close clients. All of those things impact both culture and your capacity to make the decisions, pull everything together, align everything, and then your capacity to do it.
Angie, we'd love to switch gears a little bit and really focus on you, which is...
Oh gosh, I prefer to focus on advisors.
Well, you're the leader at Angie's and Herbers, so you're carrying the culture there. So, Angie, in your day-to-day, you do tremendous work. What wakes you up in the middle of the night? What do you worry about?
What don't I worry about? That's a bigger question. It depends. You know, I think you're asking specifically for my business. I always worry about whether or not I've made enough decisions to get to the goals that we are at. So the thing that I worry about most is my decisions. So I don't know if I've ever shared this, but I was mentored by my grandfather, who was a very successful entrepreneur while he was living for almost 25 years. And he, you know, what I've learned, and maybe, you know, this was either me or there's actually a trend in this, but I don't think we teach women enough to how to make decisions. And so one of my biggest challenges, especially when I was younger, is trying to decide and even the littlest things like what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to wear. I would, you know, go in circles, put on a lot of outfits, change my mind on what I should eat, what I should not eat. I mean, I just wore myself out with not being able to decide. And the one thing that my grandfather taught me that I've never forgot is he said to me, you're creating a lot of suffering in your life by putting yourself in limbo.
Mm.
And limbo is just simply not making the decision. He said, make the decision. And then if you change your mind, you can always make another decision to move, you know, whatever you're doing forward. And what I learned by making decisions faster and faster and faster, now I make decisions quite quick most of the time. What I learned about making decisions faster and faster and faster is that I learn and I grow faster at the speed in which I make the decision. Because if I'm in limbo, I'm not learning and I'm not growing. So the things that keep me up at night are mostly around decisions. Do I need to make a decision to correct the decision that I made yesterday? Do I need to make another decision to enhance the decision that I made yesterday? I never really think about whether it's a right or wrong decision because I'm not even close to that perfect, and I'm certainly no hero. So I just think a lot about like what are my decisions today? How are the decisions I'm making today going to impact this business, our clients, our employees, our service team, well into the future? And is the impact as high as it can be? Meaning, am I, you know, being a little bit of a coward and not making a bigger decision than I should be? Or am or is the decision I made the one that I'm comfortable with? So those are it's all around decisions. That's what keeps me up at night.
Well, what a gift that your grandfather gave to you. I know how important he was in your life, personally and professionally. I think that sort of inherent in that, we don't teach women how to make decisions. I think part of that is it's hard for many women to have an inherent belief in ourselves. And so if you don't fully believe in yourself, then you second guess everything because you don't exactly have the confidence that you need. And I can say that you've given me, Angie, a similar gift over the years in the relationship that you and I have had. And I sort of was talking a little bit earlier on about a period of time in my business where I just felt like I just had to keep hiring people because our client turnover was high and our employee turnover was high and the culture wasn't anything that I was proud of. And this was over 5 years ago, if you can believe it at this point. And you were kind enough to, we had weekly sessions where we got on the phone. And I think one of the many gifts that you gave me was to have confidence in myself and to believe in myself. It's easy when you're in that cycle. I was thinking am I a bad person? What am I doing wrong? Why can't I get this right? And you gave me this gift of belief in myself and belief that I wasn't a bad person and that I did know what I was doing and that I was a good leader, but that I needed to start believing in myself. And then I needed to get clear on what I cared about and what that meant for the culture of the business, the vision of the business, the values of the business. And that period of time where you gave me that gift has been so transformational for me. And to look where we are today, 5 years later in the business, and I couldn't be more proud of the amazing people like Candace who are on my team. And the brand that we have in the space and the value, oh my goodness, I'm getting emotional. The value that we bring to this business and what it means to us and how fulfilling it is to us. And so I just wanted to acknowledge you because I know that you've been giving gifts in your life and I want you to know that you've given them tenfold. And for anyone in this business that is listening who feels lost or unclear, not sure of where they're going to achieve the growth that they're looking to achieve, I hope that they'll seek you out because I know that you don't just do it. You didn't just do that for me. You've done that for so many people in this industry. And that's why it's so incredible for us to have this opportunity with you because we can bring the impact that you've had on us to the people who listen to what we produce.
Well, first, thank you for saying that. But I have to make it truthful. The truth is you and I cared about growing and both of us needed each other in the times that we were having those conversations. And I feel like it was a mutual gift because, at the time, one of the greatest things was my grandfather. But I want to tell you that one of the hardest things was that it was only my grandfather. I didn't have to go out and seek multiple mentors or friends or, colleagues. I didn't have to be vulnerable with anyone. The capacity my grandfather had to take me through, all the businesses I had back then and the business that I have now and the businesses that, other businesses that I've built. I didn't have to do it with anybody else but him. And he just died. And I felt completely lost when he died. So the gift you gave me was, bearing my witness like he did as well. And then, kicking me into gear when I really thought I was going to stop growing Herbers and Company. And you
I remember
told me, I remember what you told me. It was dead silence on the phone. And then you said, "Are you sure?" And I think that just put a little the spark that I needed in my head to keep moving. And I have to say, this is what I love about this industry. I think anyone in this industry would help each other for free if we could, like if we could earn a living in doing that. But every once in a while, you get those special people like you, Megan, and Ficomm, that needed each other at the same time, and you gave mutual gifts. So thank you for that. And thank you for putting so many people's voices on your podcast. I mean, I'm just thrilled I got asked, but what you guys do is awesome. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know how to close out from that, ladies. That was moving to everyone, myself in the room, and I'm sure to everyone listening. And what a show of truth, authenticity, and vulnerability, and demonstrating what we really care about, which is each other. Angie, before we close out the episode, we ask every guest what the new school means to you.
Well, I'm a big proponent of people finding their voice, and everybody has an authentic voice. And sometimes I think that can be a buzzword, but I'll try to make this story short, but my parents grew up, they met each other when they were 8 years old. And one of my parents grew up poor, and the other one of my parents grew up wealthy. And what I learned as a child, going back and forth from each of those households, is that the language was different. How one social class talked to another social class was very different. It wasn't good or bad. It was just different. So I grew up a confused child. I would just match the voices on one side of the family and the other to just fit in, because it's rare that you go from those extremes growing up. Or I haven't actually ever met anyone that's gone from those extremes growing up. So when I got out into the industry, it was, I would say something and feel like, oh, that is not me, and feel like I'm stumbling and falling, and then get back up and try again, and get back up and try again. But the new school to me means that today, every voice is important. However you communicate that voice, gracefully or ungracefully, male or female, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you find your voice. And I can tell you that when I found my voice, that's when, it's a dead connection on my business, what happened in my business, or our business now, and the amount of people that we could help when my voice became my authentic voice, the true Angie Herbers. So that's what it means to me. I think it's important that we all be strong enough to talk the way we want to talk and have other people appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming on the New School episode. This has been a gift to us in real time, and will be to all our listeners and anyone who gets even to watch some snippets of this on YouTube. Where can people find you, Angie?
HerbersandCompany.com. We'd be glad to help anyone. So reach out, and we'll take it from there. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Angie.